All right. Welcome, welcome. Michael Shimono, the man, the myth, the legend. Good realtor, awesome realtor, actually, in the Phoenix marketplace. Mike, I'm excited to interview you today. Before we jump into the real estate market and start talking about the Phoenix market, which I know a lot of people are interested in that market, Shimono, tell me a little bit about your background. You don't hear Shimono as the last name, all that often.
Oh no, not in the unless you're out in Hawaii or maybe a little bit in the West Coast. Yeah, it's a Japanese background. My dad was my great grandfather immigrated to Hawaii from Japan, and my dad was born and raised in Hawaii and moved to Wisconsin, and then trickled down. Now I'm in Arizona.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. So my grandfather Buster Crab was born in Hawaii too, so I have a little heritage out there as well. That's good stuff. So when did you move to Phoenix, or where did you grow up? Where'd you go to high school? Tell me about that.
So I grew up in a small little town, northwestern Wisconsin. Not a lot of opportunities, not a lot of things going on. So when I graduated high school, I went to school. I went to college at Lindenwood University in St. Louis University. Or in St. Louis, excuse me, Lindenwood University in St. Louis. That's where I really got into fitness and into boxing. I was going to school. I was a biochem major. Originally, I was going to school to be a chiropractor. Um, got into fitness and just fell in love with changing people's lives and just what kind of effect you could have and just the rewards of it. As I was doing my amateur boxing career, it was fun. I woke up every day. 18 hours a day was fun. I was either training or with clients, and every day was a blast.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you're in great shape by looking at you. You got some, great
Six,
shoulders and everything
yeah,
else.
get down lower, we're in trouble.
Yeah. Well, we can all lose a few pounds. So athletically, you were a boxer, amateur boxer. I mean, how long did you compete? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I had 15 fights as an amateur in St. Louis. It was a little bit of a slow start for me. Had to get over some stage fright in there. I lost my first four fights, and then I knocked out my next. I won my next eight fights, knocked out six of them, and three of them were rematches. So of the four guys I lost to, I knocked out three of them. Once I figured out how to not be so
Yeah.
tense and thing.
Right. How long did it take you to knock him out?
Um, let's see. In the one, usually it's second or third round. Amateurs are tough, man. You only got 2 minutes per round. You got three 2 minute rounds. And even saying knockout's a little misleading. It's called a technical stoppage
Yeah.
because the ref just steps in because they don't want to. They're protecting the fighter.
Got
You
it.
know, it's hard to get people to the mat and amateur. I mean, I did it, but you're not getting that 10 count. As soon as they go down, like if I drop somebody twice in a round, they stopped it.
Got it. So, and this was you were boxing in college during college in St. Louis, or was this after college you got into it?
I started in college and then I went on until I was about 28.
Until about 28. Okay, that's awesome. And so you're big into physical fitness now, right? And you're still competing. Are you boxing or you're grappling or what's going on with you nowadays?
I transitioned to Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I love Carlson Gracie, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Just man, you got a family. Don't be taking those concussions. CTE is a real thing,
Yeah,
and um, at 38, it's just not. You don't recover the same way, and I don't want to be drooling at my kid's graduation.
well, yeah, getting hit in the head at 38 is not a smart thing to do. So the grappling, how long you been doing the grappling? I know you're a huge fan of it, right? My daughter, my youngest daughter, she's into grappling. Her cousins, they were big competitors, wrestling in high school and stuff like that. I know it seems to be a pretty popular sport nowadays.
Oh, it's so popular because it's just such an effective workout routine. And it's so applicable. It's such a good, for self defense. So I mean, for me, it's been a little over a year and a half. So still a white belt, but it's one that you progress much slower. If you see somebody that's a blue belt or a purple belt and they've been doing it less than 5 years as a purple belt or something, they're probably not in the best gym. They're getting like some of these old karate studios, right? They would part of their business model was people buying belts, so you
Yeah.
kept you kept members in. Whereas we're a little bit more. If you earn it, you got to earn it. It takes a lot.
Well, this is Gracie's one of his studios that you're talking about. Okay.
Carlson Gracie Jr.'s in Chicago, and then my mentor, Professor Alex, here in Gilbert, Arizona. is one of his guys, and so I've got to meet Carlson Jr. a couple times. Just a phenomenal human being, absolutely just amazing.
I can remember Gracie from like the early days of MMA when I think he was where there was no weight classes, and he actually, I think it was an ASU wrestling coach. He was fighting. He was about 260 pounds. Gracie finally got him in an armbar or something and was able to pull out a victory. But he was
I
on
think
the.
that was Roy, or there's so many of them, man. There's
Oh,
so
is
many.
there? Okay, yeah, there's a ton of them.
Uh,
Um, so
or
so typically now it's just well, are you so? What's your workout program like now? Do you box still just for training purposes, or no? You're just strictly on the mat. And one other question here, I'm loading you up with quite a few. As far as cardiovascular conditioning, and which one of those two sports would you say is a tougher sport?
you know, when we get into aerobic and anaerobic, right? They're very, and in the metabolic systems within our cellular energy, it's very different. I think they're both very explosive. It's very similar, but even you talk these MMA guys, the cardiovascular conditioning to boxing is so difficult.
It's the
You
hardest.
know,
I mean, it's
when you're training boxing, it's your cardio is you're doing so much road work. So if I'm boxing, my warm up for boxing was a 15-minute jump rope and then a 4 mile run. That's my warm up.
yeah,
Well, then the next step of the warm up is 3 rounds of shadow box. So 15 minutes,
yeah.
and then my coach, which was great, was it was either 30 minutes of running or 4 miles, whichever happened first. So I got my 4 mile time down to about 20 to 22 minutes, depending on the day. 22 to 24, 5 to 6 minute mile, and then 15 because you're training for 2 to 3 hours. I mean, that first hour is warm up,
Oh yeah,
jumping rope, running shadow box before you're even really hitting anything.
yeah.
So
I trained boxing for a while just to get in shape, and even to go 2 minute rounds. I mean, for me, I could, I mean, it's honestly probably the toughest thing I've ever done as far as physically demanding. Just going after it, hitting the bag, and working out. Um, so, Mike, I want to shift into start diving into real estate, your market, what's going on in the market. Let's just start from a 30,000 foot view. Tell me a little bit about the Phoenix market. What's going on in the Phoenix market? What do you see the future looking like? Is it hot? Has it slowed down? Is there inventory? Let's talk a little bit about that.
we're seeing a little bit of a transitionary period right now. Inventory is creeping up. We finally crossed that 19,000 listings in the MLS in the Valley, hovering between 6,800 and 7,500 homes under contract, which has changed. 19,000 active listings is pretty normal. That 18 to 20,000 is pretty standard as far as supply, but demand is lowered. A couple weeks ago, we were at the lowest number of homes under contract in over 10 years. And I think that was at like 6,300, if I remember correctly. Um, so it's, we just saw and we all know why demand cooled, right? It was these interest rates. It was the purchasing power was hurting. So with the Fed dropping the rates 0.5% yesterday, in anticipation of that, because the loan markets they tend to adjust a little bit in anticipation. We were getting some with a good lender with one of my lenders. I could get you conventional 6.1, last week. Good credit score, all that stuff, good debt to income, all the variables there. But you were looking at low sixes. It's more standard, the more standard lenders that aren't as competitive or as high level as my guys, probably mid sixes. We'll see what happens now that they dropped it, and how everything else reacts to that, right? Because there's just such a, and this is a little bit above me, but the converse relationship between the stock market and the bond market, that how that impacts interest rates.
Sure.
Um, so we got to see how things all kind of the dust settles after this week. But that just even with the rumors of an interest rate cut, we saw an uptick of homes going under contract. Um, so that it's a mental thing right now. It's am I comfortable right now? Because everybody's worried. You hear whispers of recessions. You hear, we've all seen that graphic of if you bought a home in 2019, what your home price was and what you're paying an interest over the home life loan versus now if you buy a home at today's price market and what you're paying interest. I'm butchering this number, but it was something like you'd buy an average home at 375, you'd pay $350,000 in interest. Let's throw that number out there. You buy home now, average home price 525. You're paying $900,000 in interest. So your total cost of that home 4 years ago was 700,000. It's doubled. Now you're looking at 1.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
And those numbers aren't exact. I apologize, but that's,
Yeah.
you get it. You know, um, the average mortgage a few months ago, or recently, the average mortgage was $3,200 a month. Um, you know, back when it used to be sub 2,000. So
So now that we've seen rates come up, and 6% historically is not an astronomical rate. I mean, 6 to 7%, I think, prior to having money at zero for the most part, was your typical mortgage, typically, right? I mean, you'd be in that 5 to 6 to 7% range on a 30-year fixed. I know that everyone got really used to those incredibly low rates that we had for a long period of time. So I guess now in everyone's head, maybe it's shifted, and you know, people think 2.5% or 3% mortgage is normal. I mean, can you give me any feedback on that? What?
I mean, I don't think we'll ever see that again. And that's one of the things, and I'll circle back to this. That's one of the things kind of hurt that's changed our market too. Is your value in your home right now, besides the equity, is I'm locked in. My primary home, I'm at 2.5% interest rate. We may never see that low again in our lifetime.
Yeah, and no one's going to want to sell that property at 2.5 to go step into a new property and then assume a 6.5% mortgage. So, I mean, the inventory component, right? I mean, is that just me? I mean, if I'm sitting here holding the note at 2.5% and I'm looking to do something else, I'm going to have to take a note at 6.5. I mean, assuming I'm not a cash buyer, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
So
so,
where's the
and
inventory coming from then? You know what I mean? Because you're saying the inventory's up. You mentioned 19,000 is typical as far as inventory is concerned. Is this new construction? I mean, is this you know are these bank repossessions, or people are just making the move?
it's a lot of people they have to move. I mean, we're Arizona is a little bit of a unique market. I mean, historically, people bought and moved every 5 years. That's kind of changed. That's elongated a little bit now, and I think the interest rate's a big part of that. But the reason our inventory is staying higher is we're just not taking as many off the board.
Oh,
We
I
used to
see.
talk.
That makes
So
sense.
we still have the same number of homes kind of coming on the market, but they're just coming off. We're coming off the board slower, so they're staying longer. We're seeing longer days on market. You are seeing a lot of new builds. New builds, when we talk numbers on the market, it's a little goofy because not all new builds are on the MLS or in our data. They kind of play them close to the chest because they want buyers to come into the doors so that they um, uh, can leverage that more. They want you to come in unrepresented so that they have all the power.
So
I
they
do a
have their
lot.
realtors in house, right? You go and you do a tour, and hey, if you use our real estate people and our mortgage people, you get a discount or something along those lines, right?
So always with the incentives on new builds. 'Cause I'm a big fan of new builds, and that's a whole nother conversation in our market the last few years. But you always get really good incentives using their lenders because they're always tied into it, right? They're getting kickbacks. They're an affiliated business. They're making money on the back end on that as well. But every builder's contract on a new build is proprietary to them. Whereas the general resale, you're using Arizona Association of Realtors purchase contract, which is very, very protective of the buyer because the seller typically has more leverage. The seller's always more protected. They're in a stronger position always. They have the product, right? Um, so on these new builds, you going into it, there's always a clause. There's always a clause. The sales representative purely represents the builder. Anything they say is anything verbal is not uh,
Binding.
enforceable.
Yeah.
Enforceable, binding,
Yeah.
enforceable. So everything has to be in writing. So they can tell you about this, and then if it's not in writing, and I've had to have builders resend me contracts multiple times because I'll be like, hey, this isn't in there. Hey, you told us we're going to lock them in at a 4.49 interest rate, and it's not on there. Why is that not on there? Oh, I don't care that you sent me a picture in your system in your back end saying it's going to be that. You need to put that on the contract because my client's initialing right next to the line that says anything that you say verbally is non-binding. I need it in the contract. Um, and most are pretty friendly about that, but you get a little pushback here and there, and they're not always. I'm not trying to throw shade at them, but they're doing their job. Their job as a fiduciary is to represent the builder.
Correct.
Um,
So, well, look, I want to ask you these questions because one of the things that or at least one of my pet peeve in the past with realtors, right? And of course, what's attracted me to you is as far as negotiations, and I know, you're a tough negotiator. And and the reason that I'm asking this, let me try to phrase this question correctly. In the past, when I worked with realtors in the past, I always felt that, you know, they were really just trying to get the deal closed, right? Versus aggressively representing me in the transaction. Does that make sense?
$100%.
Talking about, because I think there's a lot of, well, the real estate market's changed. So I think the people that are left in the business, which I know you've lost a lot of realtors, I mean, they have to be good at contract negotiation. But talk about that a little bit, man. How aggressive you are when you're representing your clients, whether it's on the seller side, the buyer's side. Elaborate on that a little bit. And I think a lot of that has to do, and the reason I wanted to bring up your background, with boxing, grappling, and everything else, the fact that you're an athlete and you're used to getting in the ring and throwing blows. I think it makes you a lot more comfortable just grinding on people, to get what's best for your client.
Well, and I think a lot of those, realtors that you're mentioning, again, with our market slowing down, there's just less transactions and there's less deals to go around. So there's more, less food for just as many mouths. And as they're dropping out, so every agent's pushing. Shoot, I had a deal that my client didn't buy it, but he had met some agent off of Zillow there, and then I met him. He was referred to me by one of my lenders that I trust a lot because he's like, "Hey, this guy's getting told stuff." And we get there, and he's like, "I'm like, what did the other agent tell you?" He goes, "This is a great deal. Buy it." I'm like, "Don't buy this home. This is garbage. It's way overpriced." 3 months later, that home is still sitting on the market, and now it's $40,000 less. So if he would have followed that other agent's, you know what I mean, because it would have gotten pushed through. The deal would have gotten done. It would have appraised all that. It would have gotten done. He would have overpaid by 10%. That was a $420,000 home that was listed at 480, right? So you got to be aggressive with that, and there's a lot of different things that take into account with the person's situation and how you leverage that, right? I always want my clients, buyers or sellers, to be in a position of power. You want to control yourself from being emotionally attached to a property. As soon as I get my hooks as a seller, if I'm listing a property and I meet somebody at open house, it's one of my favorite things. I love meeting a buyer at an open house that has their own representation, because then my fiduciary is 100% to my seller. I can get my hooks into that person. I can create that emotional attachment to the home, and I can create, emotions are the biggest drivers. That when we make emotional decisions, especially financially, they don't pan out. So if I can get somebody hooked on a home and plant that, we all hear FOMO, that fear of missing out, they overpay. They deal with more. They accept less repairs. They accept the terms that my seller is more willing to do. Right. So when we're negotiating, a lot of the keys in negotiating is understanding different motivations, and that's tough because my job is to protect the motivations of my seller. Right. So if my seller's got their back up against the wall about something, I don't want this person to know. I want the buyer to be afraid that I'm going to pull that deal at any time. You can't bully me. I'll
Yeah.
go over here, whether it be other offers or, hey, we'll go to renting the home, or again, the strategy depends on the situation. Um, and then on the buy side, it's kind of looking, digging information on what the seller's dealing with. One of my favorite wins a couple of years ago for a longtime client of mine, close friend now, we were under contract at 865. The sellers had messed up. They had messed up. They had got the backyard done, was not permitted, was not approved by the HOA. We could not get that approved by the HOA. I wrote an addendum to that if they couldn't get that done, that my clients could walk away with their earnest money. 5 days before close of escrow, we went from 865 to 820 because I was able to leverage that knowledge that I found out from my clients and information to get a $45,000 price reduction on this $800,000 home.
Nice.
Um, I mean, those are big wins. When we're talking about a 5% at 900,000, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Um, so knowledge is, again, so much of when we're going into negotiations is knowledge of the contract, knowledge of the process, even just knowledge of the HOAs. These things matter. Seeing where someone's weak, really, really goes a long way. And in that one specifically, they messed up. They let it slip that they were going through a divorce. So what do you think we had? You know what I mean? That's a distressed property, and you want to take advantage of somebody that's in a bad situation. No, but business is a contact sport, and my clients come first, and I'll punch you in the mouth for my clients if I have to. It's just, it is what it is.
I mean, yeah, business is adult athletics, right? I mean, it really is. I mean, that's the way I kind of take a look at it. Tell me a little bit, like, what's going on with prices, right, in the marketplace? Are we seeing prices, go up, go down? What properties are hot right now? What's selling really quickly? What type of properties aren't doing so well? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Turnkey homes always sell. So the most desirable homes are always going to be these single story turnkey homes that are updated, done. One thing that changed our market in COVID a lot was pools. With this big influx of people coming into the valley, pools got much more valuable. You used to say, hey, if you put a pool in your house, you're losing money, right? I buy a home for $500,000. I put a $60,000 pool into it. I maybe only add $15,000-$20,000 in value to that home. Appraisers used to only add 10, 5, 10, 15. Now I can get $40,000-$45,000 out of that, out of an appraiser. But sometimes even more important than the appraiser's value is the buyer's value. These people coming out of state that were moving in, they're like, I need a pool. We're moving to the desert, moving to the heat. I need a pool. They want that pool. They're going to overpay for that pool. Again, during COVID was a little bit different with the shotcrete shortage and everything. You were waiting a year to have a pool built. The price of it went from, you could get a pool for $65,000. Now you couldn't get it done for less than 120. So that changed the value of the homes a lot. The things, and it really depends on your market, but still the home's priced accurately. Every market, doesn't matter what it is. If you're priced fairly, it's going to sell. Whether that be in the luxury price point or that's in the average price point of 450,000. If you're a lower cost home, it's selling fast because there's not many.
So real quick, yeah. So on that a little bit, 450,000 or less is the hot house. I mean, what about the more expensive homes? Are they not doing as well?
They're still selling. We're seeing a little slowdown in luxury. Because that's, luxury 35-40% of them are cash. But I have several luxury buyers right now we're just watching the market and we're waiting to time it. And new build. So, and we can go back to this too a little bit, but because new builds, I still think, and it depends again, so specific on what part of the market you're in, right? So Chandler's been one of the hottest sellers markets for a while in Phoenix. Now there's all Intel, there's all these businesses going into there. But what makes Chandler such a hot market is Chandler's fully landlocked. You got reservation to the south, you got Phoenix and Tempe to the west, north you got Tempe and Mesa, and then to the east you got Gilbert and Queen Creek. You're landlocked, right? You're landlocked. There's nowhere for you to go.
Yeah.
So the infill in there, they're just infilling those where there's different spots. They're charging a premium because if you want Chandler, there's not much else. Again, scarcity, basic economics and marketing.
And Chandler's a nice place in the valley too, right? Because I mean, you can get to Phoenix quickly. You can get to North Scottsdale fairly quickly. You can get out to Queen Creek or Gilbert fairly quickly. So it's a good location.
I mean, Sky Harbor, downtown Phoenix. Because a lot, again, Phoenix is, and we're seeing that change with the amount of industry that we're moving into Phoenix. But was kind of a hub. A lot of people are in and out. A lot of people work here. They work in Tucson, so getting to 10. I have clients right now renting one of my properties that they split time between here and Tucson. So they're right there. Boom, get on the 10, shoot down to Tucson. The wife can work here in Phoenix, and the kids can be in here in Phoenix, and the husband can work in Tucson.
Okay. Yeah, I used to work in Chandler. It was great. I had a place in Chandler for a while. It was very convenient. And then I ended up going out to Gilbert. This was quite a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, you could just to get to Scottsdale would take, maybe 10 minutes versus you get out Gilbert, Queen Creek. Now you're talking a long drive. So what areas of the valley do you specialize in the whole state, Maricopa County as a whole? I mean, talk a little bit about, your area of the valley that you specialize in, or is it the whole valley?
I really primarily focus on Maricopa and Pinal. So, the valley, Phoenix, is Maricopa. Pinal is right there in the Southeast Valley. So I live in the Southeast Valley. I'm in Maricopa, but I'm in Queen Creek. But you go 4 miles east of me, it's Pinal. So we have a lot of Pinal properties that I work in, Apache Junction, Santan, Florence, some of these smaller markets. But the majority of my business that I do, Chandler, Gilbert, Tempe, Scottsdale, Cave Creek, Peoria. I focus on the hotter markets, and like Peoria is far northwest. I'll work everywhere in the valley. And you look at Peoria with TMSMC, the semiconductor plant, bringing all of that money in there. So I try to make sure I'm educating myself on the areas where other people are putting money. Right there's these multi-billion-dollar companies researching it, and they're putting companies in places on purpose. Follow their lead. They did all this research to draft off that knowledge. You know what I mean? If they're investing there, they know what they're doing. They know why they're putting their businesses there. East Valley, we have LG's huge battery plant that's going in off Ironwood, and then there's of course right next to the plant there's a huge master plan community going in called Blossom Rock. That's thousands of homes. I really try to key in on where they're developing, because that's where the jobs are going to be.
Yeah. So you're saying that's Peoria where all this is going on. So
All right, Peoria was the semiconductor plant. It was an area that I started reaching into and focusing on just because they were developing so much up there.
yeah.
Um, Scottsdale Center. Center is always going to be good. Central Phoenix, Scottsdale, Tempe. That's always going to hold its value. Paradise Valley, kind of like what I was saying with Chandler. It's landlocked. It's going to hold its value. It's always there. It's never.
So
It's
so let's talk about this. So the highest priced real estate in the state of Arizona is what going to be Paradise Valley, Cave Creek, Carefree. I mean,
Yeah, Paradise Valley, Scottsdale. There's different neighborhoods. Shoot, a block from me where I live in Queen Creek, there's a $20 million home they're trying to sell. There was a $20 million
oh
listing in Cleveland. And it blows your mind. But they're there. And
yeah,
that's just the development of us. We're with Phoenix. We're just such a market with the tech industry coming into here. There's so much value to Phoenix in the sense that our weather is more stable. Yeah, you got to deal with heat, but you go inside. We don't deal with tornadoes. We don't deal with hurricanes. We don't deal with blackouts. Our grid is very, very stable. There's just so much positive. We're close to everything, right? So California is not far. They started making Arizona a big hub. So they were unloading stuff in Longport in California, shipping it to Phoenix, and then Phoenix was the distribution center. So we're a hub. Amazon's huge here. You have Google. I work with a bunch of guys that are building the Google data center here. Meta has a data center here. Again, it's because we have the energy grid to support it. We have the weather. We don't get the crazy weather spikes and again, just things that are going to interrupt you, right? Hurricanes. You build something in Houston, you look at what those poor people have to deal with, or Florida. We don't have those major events that really are catastrophic events that disrupt business and life.
yeah. We're not dealing with earthquakes like California is. Not dealing with the hurricanes. I guess what we have is extreme heat in the summertime, right? I want to ask you a question too. When your clients are coming into this market, right? So you have a new buyer coming in, for example. Where are you seeing most of those people move from? Is it all over the United States? Is it California mainly? Is there a couple of states where you see a lot of people, wanting to come to Arizona? What's that?
It's those ones that we're all hearing about. California running out of U-Hauls. I deal with a lot of California people.
Hmm.
I deal with a lot of Washington, Oregon, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois. Um,
Wow.
Midwest. A lot of his jobs. I don't see much from like Florida or Tennessee. I've had one from Tennessee, and that was just purely work related recently. But uh, they bought a new build out here in the East Valley. And there's just different things with that too. A lot of that time, again, it depends on what side of the deal I'm at. One of my biggest wins this year that I'm so proud of because I just love my client Siobhan. We sold her home in Queen Creek to a family coming from California. They were, again, assessing situations. They were a very weak buyer. They're very, very qualified. They were putting a good amount down. They're a VA. The husband served our country. And I don't want to get into the weeds on that, but there's things with VA that make it tough. But they were in a tough spot. So they were what's called contingent, right? They needed to sell their home in order to buy this one. But they were even worse. It was a domino effect. The people buying their home in California had to sell their home in California to another buyer. So there was uh, 2 homes in California, 1 home in Arizona, and then my client was moving back to St. Louis. So there's a 4 home domino. So the 2 homes in California had to close the home in Arizona for my client, so then that she could go buy in St. Louis. Well, because of that, because I knew sellers are not going to look, they're going to look sideways at this deal. They're not going to, I don't want to deal with that. That's a domino. It's super risky, right? There's so many factors that could kill that deal. Getting a contingent deal done is so hard. But so what happens? So you have price and you have terms. So that term of accepting this domino contingency is a higher risk. Well, how do you compensate? You compensate with price and terms. So no repairs. And my client's home was only not even 2 years old. But price. We closed at 875 in Queen Creek. And this is crazy because everybody knows when you look at new build homes, the model home has all the upgrades. It's beautiful. It sells the most. My listing was the exact same floor plan as the model. The model closed 2 months before mine at 830 with $30,000 in concessions. So it was a net sale of 800,000. I sold my client's home for $875,000, zero concessions, and all the repairs were paid for by the builder because we were in our window of warranty. So my client smoked the best home in the neighborhood, best home, the model with the most upgrades by 10%. And a lot of it was she had a beautiful home. She had some views. I helped her pick an amazing lot. She had good views, but her upgrades were a little bit less. She had a nice pool. She put in a $110,000 pool, great pool. But she recouped all that money. She moved. She was in this home 20 months, and she $1,000,000 with the cost of a $110,000 pool and hardscaping in her backyard because she bought in the peak. Again, and that was just leveraging the situation. So you got to see those opportunities. Was it risky? If those 2 deals in California had fallen through, would my client have been in a bad situation? Potentially.
Yep.
But we came out ahead. I mean, we rolled the dice, and I did my due diligence. I did my job. I spoke to the listing agents in California. I spoke to all the loan officers there. I made sure everything was in line to be successful there before we got into it. And then knowing their situation. And their agent showed me their hand too much. They knew they were struggling. Anyway, I mean, it's just, I hate to bore you with that one, but it's just,
Well,
there's
no,
so many factors
it's a great
if you can.
success story. You know what I mean? It's awesome. It really is. I wanted to ask you, so, do you mainly represent buyers or sellers or both? I mean, does it matter what side of the fence?
Historically, I've been in the business 8 years now. And you typically start because you got to build your business, right? So before you start really selling homes, you got to get people that help them buy. I'm still probably 70-30 buyers, 60-40, maybe getting there. As the market turns and as, my client base, I'm starting to sell more homes. It's different. Now, one thing that I hamstring myself a lot because as a fiduciary, and I know you get this calling it being a fiduciary as well, my goal for my clients is long-term wealth, independent, financial independence, retirement. So when I have a client, and this goes back to the interest rate aspect, when I have a client who owns a home that doesn't necessarily need to tap into their $400,000 in equity to sell their home to buy another one, or I find a creative way to tap into some of that equity without giving up that 2.5, 2.75, 3.5 interest rate. And now they have a home where their mortgage is $1,600, but I can rent it out for them for $2,700. So even with that added risk, they get $800 in cash flow and they get all this equity in this home. So now they're building long-term wealth and a retirement, and then they go buy another home. So a lot of my listings that I would get, I lose. I'm doing that right now. I got 3 of my people right now that I helped them all last year buy a new home. And this is the time of year where they bought. I'm relisting their home and finding them a renter, which is not really what I do, but for my clients, I'll do whatever it takes for them to have success. And now they have all this equity that they're getting, and they're getting cash flow, and then that loan balance is getting paid off. So even with the home, because values, they peaked in 2022. May of 2022 was the peak of our home values. We dipped. It was about December of 23. We kind of bottomed out, and then we peaked again. So, but some people, if you bought in that peak of 2022, you're still a level upside down. So I have several clients that do want to buy and do want to move, but they bought when there was a bidding war. I mean, a home would list at $600,000 and it would sell at $700,000. People were waiving appraisal. And they were overpaying by 20, 30, maybe even $50,000 above the appraised value, because that was what it was taking to get a home when there was only 3,500 homes on the market.
Yeah.
And we hopefully we never see a market like that again. I don't think we will. I mean, that was, very, the black swan event of COVID. Um, and that's a whole other thing with negotiating too, right? A lot of those people, our market was much cheaper then. Our cost of homes was much less. So somebody selling their home in California for $1.2 million could come buy a home in Phoenix that was double the home. I sold a home in Cave Creek for $800,000. They sold that was a single story, 5 bedroom, 4 bathroom, pool, 4 car garage, acre lot.
Cave Creek?
Again, Cave
Where's?
Creek.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah. And now, I mean, now that home's worth 2 million, but this was at the start of it. And my client said they were going through a divorce. They had bought that home for 650 a year earlier. So in a year, I made them 150 grand in equity. But the person buying it was buying it cash from California. They were selling a 1.2 million or 1.7. Excuse me, is a 1.2 or 1.7 million dollar home in California. That was a 1,700 square foot home, 2 story, 3 bedroom, 2.5 bath house. At 1.7, they were getting 3 times the home
sure.
here. Um, or Len and Leslie, Glenn and Leslie, they sold their home in Staten Island. It was a similar 1,800 square foot, but goofy because it's different because it's a hedgerow. It was a 4 level home. So it's like, here's a level, here's a level. It was kind of like a switchback, no garage. They sold that home for just over 600,000. Well, I got them a single story home, 3,000 square foot, 4 bedroom, 2.5 bathroom with an office and a pool and a 3 car garage for 595. Um, Back to a green belt. I mean, beautiful home, beautiful home. They had never even had a garage in their life, so they sold this home in Staten Island, and they got 3 times the value in their home.
Sure.
And now with COVID, that's changed a little bit, but we're still, the average home value in California is 960, I think. Whereas in Phoenix, I think we're high 450, 475. It fluctuates month by month, but right around there, about 500,000 is our average home price.
So now,
So
right now in the market, are we seeing prices come down then, or
we're going to see that. We're kind of in a we are seeing that come down. We are seeing them come down in general. Um, Demand's down, inventory's up, prices are going to go down. Um, Cost is probably still same or more with those interest rates. But what we're anticipating, a lot of my clients that are on the bench waiting for the right opportunity is timing it. Uh, we're anticipating, as long as our economy stays strong, and again, it's different because Phoenix has such a strong economy with all these jobs coming in. Um, we're anticipating, once they get into the fives, that conventional loan is in the fives, we're going to see multiple offers on homes again that are priced at fair and accurately. Just because there's a lot of people that they don't want to be renting and they just need that affordability. So if I can go buy a $500,000 home, $400,000 home, put 10% down, and my mortgage is only $2,700, I'm going to do it because my rent is going to be 25 to 3,000 easily for the similar home. I have one right now that I'm listing today that is either for list or rent. We're listing it for sale at 535 and for rent at 3,000. So it just depends on what's the best.
so? I mean, moving forward, I mean, I know there's a lot of variables, right? We're going into an election year that's going to, determine kind of a lot with what's going on in the future. But you're seeing pressures, you're seeing prices come down. So I mean, if a buyer can get in, as prices are coming down, and then we see the interest rate market change, right, and interest rates come back down to try to stimulate the economy. I mean, in theory, that client could come in, potentially get a house that's been discounted. Yeah, they're not going to get the best rate, or potentially, they're going to qualify at whatever the 6.5, 6.1. But then we see rates drop back down. For example, let's say they go from 5.5 or even down to 4.5. Then we're going to start seeing an influx, right? We're going to start seeing prices go back up. But that client would be able to refinance at that point and take advantage of a lower interest rate, if in fact that things moved in that direction. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And there's some other strategies if we were to dive into it. If you're buying right now and to try and avoid that price point, there's a lot of strategies. On a resale home, I'm a big fan of the 3-2-1 or 2-1 buy down. And what that is the cost of this buy down comes from the seller. So it's a big ask, and it's a good $15,000 to $25,000 concession from the seller. So they sell their home at 525, and I get a 3% concession. Then I'm getting about roughly, let's call it $17,000 back from the seller. So they're really selling at about 508. But that $17,000 goes into an escrow account, and that escrow account supplements your mortgage payment for the first 2 years. So the first year, say your market interest rate is 6.5. Your first year, your payment will reflect a 4.5 interest rate. The second year will reflect a 5.5 interest rate. And then the third year, you're fixed. It won't adjust from there at that 6.5. Now, the beauty of this one, at any point in time, if you refinance that loan before that end of that time, the money in that escrow account that was supplementing your mortgage payment, paying that difference in interest, is applied to your loan balance. So we've all bought loans or bought homes, or most of us have bought homes. We're like, I'm going to buy a point. I'm going to pay $4,000. I'm going to lower my interest rate by 0.25%. When you do that, that's one and done. You lowered that money's gone. You're never seeing that again. On these buy downs, that money's sitting in there. And for example, say the 6.5 interest rate's a $3,000 a month payment, right? And these numbers aren't accurate, but just for the sake of math and making
Sure.
it simple.
Yeah.
And a 4.5 interest rate's 2,000. So that first year, $1,000 is coming out of that escrow account to supplement. So you, as the homeowner, you pay 2,000. 1,000 is coming out of here. You're only responsible for 2,000, but 1,000 is coming out of there. So we've got $18,000 in that escrow account, and then the first year, 1,000 is coming out every year. The next year, now your payment reflects a 5.5 interest rate, which would be $2,500. So every month, $500 is coming out. Well, in that, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So in that escrow account, are they earning a rate of return at all in that?
No, they're not getting interest on that.
Okay.
No, they're just the title company, or I'm sure somebody's making money on it. Unfortunately, it's not the homeowner. But
Yeah.
the benefit of it is that to them again is that they have that lower cost every month, especially when you buy a home, right? You put a bunch of money into it, you're lowering your risk. But I love it though that say on month 13 you refinance your home and there's 12,500, so there's $6,500 left in the escrow account. That $6,500 is applied to your loan balance. So now you're getting a refinance and your loan drops.
Yeah.
And you're getting a better rate. So now your payment is closer to that original payment that you had. So that's one of the things that we were doing in resale. Now on new build, and this is one of the things changing our market a lot too. And this is kind of why I was going off on the pool. And I apologize, you guys, I geek out on this, and there's so many factors. So Colin,
Yeah.
you're doing a great job of keeping me in there. The Some of the markets where resale is slower is where there's a lot of new builds. The reason being is I can go find you a new build home, which comes with its own risks and its own pros and cons and timeline issues. But I can get you. I just closed one this month. They got a FHA fixed at 4.49 interest rate. The builder paid all their closing costs, so they came into that home 3.5% down and maybe
I mean, that's a
$2,000
great interest. That's a great interest.
and it's fixed. They may not have a chance to refinance out of that. But they may never, they may never have a reason to. And PMI and FHA will drop off eventually. We'll figure that out for them as time goes. But they plan on this being a long-term home for them.
So elaborate as to PMI and what you just mentioned. Just for
PMI is primary mortgage insurance. On conventional loans, you have PMI if you owe if you have a lien against the property that's greater than 80% of the value. So if I put 10% down in a home, part of my mortgage payment every month will be PMI.
correct. And then
If I
much is
put
PMI
20% down,
or something like that. How much is PNI nowadays?
they did lower it a little bit. It's unconventional. There's so many factors. There's ways you can lower that too. So much of it depends on your interest rate. I'm going to stay in my lane. I'd have you talk to a loan officer to be a little bit safer on that.
Yeah.
FHA, I believe
if you have 20% equity, you can get out from underneath the PMI. Correct.
Correct. So if why people think 20% down, that's where that myth, that Mandela effect, a little bit came from on that. Whereas FHA is 3.5, life of the loan, but that's not even true either. VA, there's no PMI. USDA, which is an unknown loan product, there's PMI, but it's so minimal, and you get an amazing interest rate. So the best interest rates right now are still going to be VA, FHA, and USDA. USDA, go ahead.
Mike, in the interest of time, I mean, the awesome conversation here too. Let's talk to me a little bit about, uh, I'm a new client coming to you. I want to offload a property. Tell me a little bit about what you do to market that property, make that property stand out. Just elaborate on that if you would, real quickly.
So we have a professional stager that comes through. We stage it. We make sure it's done right. Our team is, we have so many accolades. Inman, we have the top 3 teams in the country as most innovative. Business Journal, again, 5th year running, I think, just announced us as one of the most innovative real estate teams in the Valley. So my job really for my clients is we delegate, right? So my job is to be in the trenches, to negotiate for you. I'm your front man. So then I delegate. We have amazing Adam, our amazing listings manager. We have Lisa, our stager, who she goes in professionally, does everything. This is all part of our services.
Oh wow.
Your home, photographer. We even, because of our
So staging the home, are they? So are they? I mean, are they just coming in saying, "Hey, are they bringing in furniture and stuff? Or are they just cleaning the place, making it look right?" That's all. It sounds incredible.
case by case, we're not seeing a ton. I'm not a big fan of that virtual staging. Where you just see the photos and there's like the 2 and it's just fake. Maybe with AI, I'm sure that's going to improve. But we do more. So if you're an occupied home, hey, put the couch here, open this up, create light here, get colors here, declutter this. We want to present the best thing possible that we're catching eyes. Making sure the surfaces that what are the positives of your property that we want to accentuate? Where do we want to draw their eyes? What do we want to focus on to build value in your home, and create that demand? So that's a big part of that. Some stuff. I mean, here we go. Some painting in there and stuff like that. If it's a vacant property and we have to bring in furniture, that's something we can do. We have done it. Again, it
It makes
depends
a
on the
big
market.
difference, right? I mean, staging the house makes a huge difference.
It can. It
Yeah.
really can.
I mean, it's like buying a model home. You go
Yeah.
in. I bought a couple of new houses, and you go through the model, and you're like, yeah, I want that model, right, with these features and benefits, because
Yeah.
it's not like you're walking into an empty place where it's cold and there's no warmth to it. I mean, it's all decorated, beautiful. You're like, man, I could just sit down and kick my feet up in this place. So basically, what you're telling me is you have a whole team. I mean, you got a whole team helping out to get top dollar for your client in a listing scenario. Correct, Mike?
And specialized. So we have the best of the best doing that. So my job is negotiating. My job is, like I said, being the face of your property and of you. And then we have people in the back, and that's what they do. That's what they specialize in. That's all they focus on.
Great,
And that frees me up to do my job,
awesome.
which is staying on top of the market, staying on top of demand for you, staying in constant communication with you and our potential
Hardball
prospects.
negotiations to get what's best for your client. So hey, we're coming to the end of time here. I didn't get to touch on half the stuff I wanted to talk to you about, but real quickly, I come to you and say, hey, Mike, I want to buy a place in Carefree, North Scottsdale. That's my favorite scenario. Okay, or my favorite place in the valley, if you will. Walk me through that. What are you going to do in that situation as far as getting the right property for me in that example?
Again, depends on demands. What are your goals? Are you wanting? Again, it's the
my,
basic first.
my forever
How,
house, for example. Look, I mean,
so
my
what?
forever house, right?
Yep.
My
Uh,
forever house. You'll ask me basically, hey, what all are you looking for, features and benefits, this type of thing, and then, I mean, you're going to work, you're finding what's out there. Are you willing to potentially approach any off market type of stuff?
that you beat me to it. So one of the best things, some of the best homes sell before they hit the market, right? So staying in tune with what's on there, what's out there. And again, like my team, our 40 plus agents that do all over the valley, doing 300, 400, 500 million a year, depending on the year, in transactions. We all have a stable of clients. We all know what's coming up. We all look at, hey, this is what we have coming soon. So, hey, I know Rita and Cullen, they want to be in Carefree or Cave Creek. I got a property that's single story, acre, 4-car garage, pool, split floor plan, amazing views, right? That's
Gorgeous.
set to come to market in 3 weeks, right? I know that. I know what you're looking for, Cullen. I know what you like. You
Yeah,
want views,
exactly.
you want nice, upgraded. Maybe needs a little bit here and there that we can leverage to get a little bit better deal from the seller. We get you in there. We negotiate a smoother deal. We get you in there before we have to bid everybody, right? We make it a win-win. The seller doesn't have to have people walking through their house. They don't even have to put it online.
Yeah.
right?
I mean,
It's
it's awesome. Yeah, and it's great. It works out great. I mean, in theory, it works out really good for everybody in that scenario, right? So, hey, Mike, where do people find you? How do people get a hold of you? I mean, if somebody's watching this and they're interested in, the real estate market, I mean, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
using my phone number. I still got my Wisconsin phone number. Good old Wisconsin boy. I can't give it up. 715-577-7305. I'm a realtor, man. That thing lives on my hip, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
that
what's
doesn't
that number
change.
again one more time? And I know we're going to put all your contact information, it'll all be up there as far as that's concerned, but give that number out one more time, please.
715-577-7305.
So, Mike, this has been awesome. I appreciate this today. I'd like to have you back, down the road a little bit. I'd like to talk some more strategy with you. And then I'd also like to talk about some additional business endeavors that you're working on as well. So, dude, I appreciate you. Thanks a lot. This has been an awesome interview, man. Dude, I mean, you're doing a great job. It's spectacular. Other than that, man, we'll talk to you on the next one. See you later, bud. Appreciate you.
Oh, sir.
Take care.